Imagine you're a human during any time before the 17th century. Let's say you're walking around in a mesa or a marsh, really any sort of environment. You're trying to find metal deposits in said area, and as you're digging, you find what looks to be an abnormal looking rock. Upon more digging and closer inspection, you come to realize these are some sort of bones, and not just any type of bones from anything today, something completely otherworldly. What would you do? Who would you tell? Of course, you're not the first person to find these sort of bones, but you don't know that. Hell, you can't even begin to describe what you've seen. Is it some sort of animal? Maybe treasure? A dissembled human? Or maybe something much more terrifying? And you have to face the reality of it. The reality that there was something that existed far before you or anyone else ever did. And something much more monstrous. As you dig more, you find even larger bones, far too big for anything that exists today. Now, this was the reality of earlier humans before the science boom happened in the 19th century. When we look at all of the myths, all of the tales of creatures and beings far beyond our scope of reality, it makes some sense as to why people truly believed in things such as giants and dragons. Of course, this does tie into other factors, but finding a femur in the dirt that's larger than two men can make you second guess everything. If everything else was belief, this was proof. And so, these bones became legends long before science could explain them. People whispered of creatures that walked the earth eons before, monsters larger than imagination itself. Some saw gods, others demons, but all were terrifyingly real, enough to shake the mind of anyone who stumbled upon them, questioning the very world they knew. Proof that the world had once been home to beings so colossal and alien, they could shatter every belief and understanding you had of reality itself. Imagine staring at a skull so massive it dwarfs your own head. You trace the grooves and ridges, wondering what kind of beast could have existed. Every story you've heard of giants and monsters, or gods, suddenly feels like a whisper of truth. Fear grips you, not just the creature itself, but of the world it came from. A world older and stranger than anything you could ever imagine. Now, most would have fled or claimed the bones were remains of said beasts and creatures, while the more inquisitive, analytical, and discerning members of humanity would try to come to conclusions to figure out the origin of these things that we call fossils today. Today we'll briefly explore what these ancient bones meant to people and how they became the science of fossils. Some ancient peoples, upon discovering these massive bones, believed them to be the remains of giants who once walked the earth, or dragons that soared through skies long before humans existed. Without science to explain such findings, imagination ran rampant, and legends took hold. Fossils became nightmares and marvels, feeding tales of creatures far beyond what anyone could truly comprehend. But how did humans go from imagining monsters to actually studying these ancient bones? Over time, people began to observe, compare, and catalog these fossils. What was once feared as remnants of something greater slowly became evidence of creatures that truly walked the earth long before humans ever existed. Scholars and curious minds started piecing together these clues, laying the foundations for what we now call paleontology. Some of the earliest fossils were found in ancient Greece and China. People didn't know they were the remains of extinct animals. They thought they were remains of giants, dragons, and other legendary beasts. In the 17th century, scholars began measuring and comparing these bones, realizing they were unlike anything alive today. These observations slowly shifted human thought. Myths gave way to the beginnings of scientific reasoning, laying the groundwork down for paleontology as a discipline. As humans began to take a more systematic approach, scholars in the 18th century started documenting fossils carefully. They measured, drew, and compared bones, trying to understand what creatures had left them behind. Then soon, the myths of old started to be questioned and debunked heavily. Observations replaced superstition, and what was once terrifying and mystical became something to study and understand. This shift marked the dawn of paleontology as a truly scientific pursuit. Among the first fossils studied were the massive bones that had long inspired fear and legend. Fossils of creatures like giant reptiles and strange mammals were carefully collected and compared. Scholars such as Robert Plott and William Buckland began proposing that these remains belonged to ancient, long-extinct creatures. Each discovery challenged old beliefs, proving once and for all that the Earth had once been home to animals far beyond the size and form of anything alive today. One of the first dinosaurs to be formally described was Megalosaurus. Discovered in the early 19th century, its massive bones had likely been seen for centuries, sparking tales of ancient beasts. When scientists like Buckland studied it, they realized these creatures weren't myths. They were real ancient animals. Its bones were unlike anything known at the time. Massive, sharp, and clearly from a predator. For the first time, people began to see the world had once been home to giant creatures after all. Of course, while early naturalists knew these were real creatures and not just legends, they still had a long way to go in understanding them. For example, the claw of what we now know as iguanodon was sometimes misinterpreted as a horn or nose spike, showing how the imagination worked to fill in the gaps of early anatomy. It took a lot of patience and many failures and reconstructions to understand what dinosaurs might have looked like today. As more fossils were studied, scientists began to notice surprising connections. Theropod dinosaurs shared features with birds, from hollow bones to claw structure. Meanwhile, many herbivorous dinosaurs appear closer to reptiles in anatomy, showing that these ancient creatures weren't random monsters, but part of a larger, interconnected natural world. Fast forward today, and the bones that once inspired fear and myth now captivate our imaginations in very different ways. Dinosaurs appear in books, museums, and movies, even toys, symbols of wonder and discovery rather than terror. What was once mysterious and monstrous has become a bridge, connecting science, education, and entertainment for people of all ages. And yet, even as we bring them to life on screens and pages, the truth of their existence remains extraordinary. Bones buried in the earth, once mysterious and terrifying, continues to remind us how small we are in the grand story of life on this planet. What we discover may always challenge what we think is possible. Even now, each bone we uncover is a reminder. The world once held beings beyond our imaginations. What stories remain buried, waiting for us to question, to discover, and to wonder. Hey guys, if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you for watching, and thank you guys so much for getting me to 130 subscribers. I apologize for not making too much videos in the past couple months, but I will be making some more. I just wanted to get back in the groove with some of the shorts I've been uploading, but again, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this and you want more content, and have a good night.